Welcome to Talkin' Jets. My name's Ryan, and I'll be your pilot tonight. I am joined alongside my lovely co-pilot, Mr. 𝐒𝐿. We're going to have Will Parkinson joining us on the back half of this show, so right around the 8:20, 8:30 hour. So make sure you hang tight for that. But Dom, how you doing tonight?
I'm good, man. 19 days, 17 days, something like that until the draft.
How damn time.
Yeah, I'm good, man. I'm good. Busy, but you know, such is life.
Boys and
I'll
girls,
sleep in
we
May. That's what I've been telling everyone.
After that, it's really like you blitz through the draft, you do the recap videos, the breakdowns, then you got the schedule release, and then from basically like the middle of May until the end of July is a little bit of like a lull period. There's not a whole crazy ton going on.
Yep. Excuse me.
Kind of looking forward to it. Boys and girls, if you're just hopping in here, make sure you hit that like button for us. It goes a long way towards supporting the channel. Let's get into some discussion that happened this past week. And this is a Breece Hall potential trade. We had Rich Cimini kind of sprinkling some breadcrumbs all over the the ESPN sphere, saying that the Jets are going to be using a running back by committee. So what does that mean for Breece Hall's value? Could they take 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐬𝐫? So I want to hear from you. What are your thoughts, Dom, on this whole potential narrative?
I don't know if there's a real narrative behind it, Ryan. I think that to me it smells like 𝐒𝐿𝐴 just trying to draw some clicks or whatnot. I don't know where it came from. I think he's, again, deducing something based off of Aaron Glenn saying that we like all of our running backs. Well, what's he supposed to say? What's he supposed to say? No, we don't like these two guys. They're just okay. No, he's gonna say we're gonna utilize all our guys. We have the best 53 guys in the NFL. That's typical coach speak. So I wouldn't put too much into it. And more so not because I'm a Breece fan, which I am. He's my favorite current Jet right now. But excuse me. What are you gonna do? You're gonna trade a guy to create another hole to just draft a guy that you hope is as good as the one who you're trading away? It just doesn't make any sense, to me, at least. I don't know.
I think it makes perfect sense, Dom, because if you wanted to have a team jump you for 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐬𝐫, that's the way you got to do it. You got to float some breadcrumbs, make them think that you're trading away your star player.
Hey, that's fair. That's fair.
That's the only logical piece that I can come to in this. Now,
look, and they've done that.
I was going to say, I'm not like opposed to having discussions about trading Breece. I don't even think trading Breece is that like absurd of a claim to eventually make at some point. But like the idea of trading Breece and then drafting 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐬𝐫 is where you lose me entirely. That is not something I would endorse. I don't really want to see Breece gone for the next 2 years. I'll be real honest.
Yeah, and listen, if you don't want to re-sign him, or you don't want to, you're this, 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐫 and AG and this new regime is, on board with the idea that, hey, we're not going to sign running backs to big money contracts. We're gonna kind of let them roll through, wash, rinse, and repeat. Fine. I have no problem with that whatsoever. However, like you said, if you said, all right, well, you know what, this is the peak value that we're going to get for Breece, and maybe we get a 3 and a 5, a 3 this year, 5 next year, whatever it is, whatever the trade scenario is, we're going to do that. And because it's such a deep running back class, we think we'll be able to get really good value later on in rounds 3 or rounds 4, rounds 5. But to just use a top 10 pick on a running back again, I mean, I don't know. And again, that has nothing to do with 𝐒𝐿𝐴. 𝐒𝐿𝐴's a phenomenal player, phenomenal talent. But it just doesn't make sense. 1 and 1 doesn't equal 2 to me, my friend.
No, not at all. I love the prospect of having Breece on some fresh legs in an offense that's really going to highlight the run. I mean, think about how many times we actually ran the ball last year with Aaron. I mean, I think were we the highest throwing percentage team? I think we might have been. It was like pretty high up there.
68%.
That's insane
percentage. Yeah,
crazy town.
Yeah, more than 2/3.
Bring that number way down. way down. And I think with Justin Fields, you're going to put so much pressure on opposing defensive ends and linebackers and secondary pieces that you're going to really be able to open up some really big lanes in this running game, not just for Breece, but for Isaiah Davis and Braylon Allen and Justin Fields. I think it's going to be a fun use of him. And I don't know why you would want to trade Breece right now anyway. This seems like it would be his lowest potential value coming off like a down year. Like, to me, I'd rather showcase him for this entire year. Now, I want to franchise tag him and have him for an additional year the year after, but like at the very least build up his trade value and then start considering it either at the trade deadline or you know, after the season, if it helps you get maybe a quarterback or something of value in next year's draft. I'm not on board the whole trade Breece bandwagon thing at all. I'll do a little poll question while we kind of discuss this. Would you trade Breece?
I think I would trade anybody. Let's call it. You know, that's a tough way to answer the question because there's a price for anyone. There's a price for anyone. I think.
Yes, this draft. Yes, trade deadline. We'll say yes. Next off season, and then we'll just say no. I think most people are probably going to fall in line with like being reasonable and like all right with trading Breece. Like, I don't even know which one people are necessarily going to select. I would say next offseason would be like my preferred route because then you don't have to take on the big cap hit from a franchise tag. Not that it's really like that big anyway. Like, we're paying like Stevens the same contract that you would pay Breece Hall on a franchise tag. So like, I don't like it. Don't like it. Yeah. Brian Glick in the chat says, can't answer the poll question without compensation package. Yeah, well, I'm not putting that much thought into this. So I don't want to. Look, if someone offered you a first for Breece, you take it. You do that all day. If they're going to say, hey, you're getting a third-round pick for Breece, we're going to get a comp third-round pick when we eventually let him walk at some point anyway, most likely, unless we start signing a whole crazy ton of free agents whenever that does happen. But I would say second round pick, you get me thinking about it. First round pick gets it done. And that
you're not getting a first round pick for Breece Hall.
I'm well aware I'm not. I can shoot for the moon and fall amongst the stars.
You're probably not getting a second round pick for him either. And again, nothing to do against the player, but you're drafting a running back who's already going to be in his fourth season. In arguably the deepest and best running back class that we've seen in 20 years, draft class in 20 years. I don't think you're getting much more than a day 3 pick.
Yeah. And that to me just is not worth it. I mean, the value of him just keeping other guys' legs fresh. Like, at that point, you kind of give him the Le'Veon Bell treatment and you just say, okay, we're going to run you into the ground, which is, again, not really what I want to see happen. I want to see some fresh legs and a running back by committee. Like, there's a reason why teams are switching to running back by committee, and that's because you get to keep your guys' legs fresher longer. We talked about this last year when the Jets drafted Braylon and Isaiah, and it's the opportunity to extend Breece's career, not just run him into the ground like the bell cow we were trying to do the 2 years prior. Any thoughts to like having a bell cow versus a running back by committee? And, you know, is there one approach that you value over another?
No, I don't think there's one approach that I value. I think it depends on the player and the personnel, right? If you got a room full of good running backs, then yeah, give me a committee. Keep it fresh, keep it moving. I think there's something to be, you know, like, listen, there's just not many bell cows this day and age. There's not, right? How many are there? There's Saquon, there's King Henry,
Jacobs,
Josh Jacobs, I guess you could say, is a bell cow. Not even Bijan Robinson, because they get a lot of carries to Tyler Algier as well. So I don't even know if there's more than 4 or 5 guys that you could say are true bell cows. It's just few and far between. Wear and tear, the physicality of the game. To be a bell cow this day and age, you need to be a unicorn. And I don't think, as good as I think Breece is, I don't think he's a unicorn, man. You know, I think he's a much better fit for, to plant his foot and get vertical and really that outside zone scheme, wide zone where he can also do something in the pass game. He's not a guy. I don't know if he's ever going to be a guy that you want to give 25 carries to.
I would give him 25 touches. Anytime to get him the ball in space. Like, it doesn't have to be a run. It could be a pass, too. Like, that's the value of Breece Hall to me. Like, there's not a lot of... I shouldn't say there's not a lot of good running backs that can't catch the ball, but, like, it is somewhat of an acquired skill set for the running back position, especially the way they're kind of utilized in college. Like, you do tend to see more bell cow backs in the collegiate level. And Breece being able to come out of the backfield with the speed he has and the shiftiness in space, like... That's something the Jets should be utilizing, and having that extra weapon, have Breece on the field with Fields, with Braylon Allen, and just let teams try to stop that. So I agree with you. I like the committee idea, and it also kind of prevents you from like pigeonholing your offense into like one specific guy too.
Yeah, true.
I see Bean in the chat. Bean is saying, bad take. I don't know what the bad take. Hold on. Where's my... I didn't get this set up the correct way. It's all right. I forgive myself. I don't even know if he has like an actual stance on it, but he's saying, where'd it go? He says, bad take. I don't know which take is bad. Or if he's just yelling at
I think he's just using emojis.
I love the emojis. It's great.
Yeah.
He says, Fukin man, what the F is this guy talking about? Love you, Bean.
What, that I wouldn't give Breece Hall 25 carries?
I don't know. I think he just gets excited. He's amped up for your 10 o'clock mock. Are you doing the 10 o'clock mock with him? Or are you?
We are. I'm doing the 10 o'clock mock with him.
I like it. Boys and girls, we're going to skip the 10 o'clock mock for this, or sorry, not 10 o'clock mock. We're going to skip the mock draft for this particular show because we got Will Parkinson coming on at 8:20 or 8:30 or so. So we're going to talk a little football with him. And then 𝐒𝐶 and I are going to head over to my channel. We'll do the mock draft theme, which is the Jets and Falcons trade, where the Jets fall back to number 15. And then we'll see how our draft kind of shakes out from there. And then the 10 o'clock hour, we're going to be pushing you over to Green Bean's channel with Dom C and Green Bean doing the 10 o'clock mock with the same theme. So you'll get 2 mocks tonight of people talking about the Falcons trade and what could potentially happen. So I guess that's a good jumping off point. I want to hear your thoughts, Dom. Falcons Jets trade. Jets fall from 7 to 15. Would you be okay with it? And is there a player you would try to identify at that spot?
Would I be okay with it? Yes, I would be okay with it. Because in the sense that, I'm not, first off, I think Jets fans have taken this, thing that was put out and really, really run with it. All of a sudden now it's 15, Kyle Pitts and a first next year. I don't know where this all came from. I think people are just, it's like a game of telephone. Like, that's never going to happen. However, I'd be interested in it. I think that, you start from 15, you start getting in really good value. I don't know if the value is as good for players in the top half. Like, I know we talk about Tyler Warren and we talk about Armand Membo a lot in the Jets world. But I don't think either of the players, although they're very good, I don't think either of them are absolutely, you cannot leave this draft without them. Mm-hmm. So if you're telling me that you're going to take a guy at 7 who's not absolutely, you do whatever you can to get this guy on your roster, then I'll slide back a little bit and give me more capital. Mm-hmm. Now, the thing people aren't talking about, Atlanta doesn't have a lot of draft capital. Mm-hmm. They have a first, a second, a fourth, and 2 sevenths. Mm. So what are they trading up? What are they using to trade up? They're going to probably have to go into next year's capital. I doubt you're getting the second rounder this year. So that's why this whole trade is kind of fuzzy to me. I don't know if it's realistic.
Well, I'm trying to think. What was the Bean sent me? He said Pitts and 15. So it's Pitts and next year's first. So
plus 15.
plus 15. Yeah, but they're getting 7 too. So like if you say that fallback is probably equivalent to like a first, I don't know what Kyle Pitts' value potentially is. I don't think it's like wild. They're giving up
It's an
one additional pick.
$8.5 million contract for a guy in his last year. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if the Jets fans are thinking like, hey, we need a tight end and this guy, you know, maybe you re-sign him or you just let him play out the 1 year and kind of go from there. I agree. I don't think it's super likely to see this happen because of the way the Falcons draft capital is. But I will say this. You and I were the ones that brought this up months ago at this point. We had a mock draft where we listed a few different opportunities, and we said the Falcons trying to jump the Saints and the Panthers could be appealing for whatever player, an edge rusher or whatever.
Yeah, for an edge.
Now people are
it was edge
talking
rusher
about
at that point. Yeah, we are trendsetters, Ryan.
I believe so.
Trendsetters, my friend. So let's talk about that. So if you drop back from 7 to 15 in this hypothetical situation, I mean, I'm just shooting names off the top of my head here.
Sure.
Obviously, if Pitts is part of the deal in this, really convoluted, fabricated thing by the Jets fans, you would assume that a tight end isn't of paramount importance, right? You figure that he's going to get most of the run, even though he's much more of a flex, a big slot than he is tight end. So I don't think it's a position that you don't have to worry about filling. You're still going to have to fill that X or that Y role at some point. However, is the drop off in tackles that much different from, say Armand Membu to maybe, I'm just shooting names here, so not in any specific order, maybe like a Will Campbell, if you think he's a tackle and he's around that spot? Is it that much of a drop off to a Kelvin Banks Jr.? Is it that much of a drop off if you want to roll the dice on Josh Simmons? If you think that knee's healthy? Probably not. It opens up possibilities, opens up different type of weapons, right? Is that the area where you can get Matthew Golden from Texas, the receiver, Emeka Egbuka from Ohio State? Does it open up the opportunity to go a completely different way and get some of the defensive guys on the board who's might be too rich at 7, but now you're more comfortable in taking them at 15, whether it's, again, making up names here, guys. Don't kill me in the chat. Mykel Williams, Shamar Stewart, Kenneth Grant. I don't know.
Yeah, I think if we were to slide back, my thought process kind of pivots from tackle. I think last week's mock draft, you and I wound up taking the tackle in this sort of mock draft scenario. I think we fell down to 12 or 13. And I could understand taking the tackle. I would probably go wide receiver. I think you get a really good wide receiver. And Golden's the one that kind of stands out to me as the burner that would maybe complement what like the Lions kind of did. The Jets don't have that game-breaking speed receiver. I mean, obviously Garrett Wilson's, lightning quick, but just not that same style of player, I guess. I would look at Egbuka. I think that makes a lot of sense. I mean, I guess in this theoretical situation, you're getting Kyle Pitts, so you're not worrying about Tyler Warren or Loveland at this point. I still probably don't want to go defense. Like, I don't know if there's a player that really like gets me going. If it was,
we'll get to talk
rusher.
to Will Parkinson about it, because one of his favorite players in this class is, polarizing in that sense, because he can go in the top 5 and he can go down to 35 depending on who you talk to, and that's Jalen Walker. So he's a guy that we can discuss.
I'm really excited to see what he has to say about that. Will, very, very smart dude. So if you guys have not followed Will on Twitter, make sure you give him a follow over there. He will be on with us momentarily. Go through the chat and just see what people are saying. There was a 50% no rate for the would you trade Breece Hall conversation. Harlan says, you should not trade Hall. You aren't getting much value for him. Hall should play out the season, and if the Jets can't reach an agreement on a new contract, maybe they can get a comp pick. Now, Dom, is there any way you would like go this route, or would you like definitely hit him with the franchise tag? Like for me, I feel like there's no way I let him walk for just a comp third.
How do you know you're going to get a comp third? He's got to get paid to get a comp third, right? And free agent running backs just don't make, big bang for their buck. So, you're talking probably a comp fifth. Would I franchise him? I guess it would depend on how, what happens here in the season, what happens with this draft, what happens in, I guess as you leading up to free agency, if you think the free agent class is pretty good and there's somebody that you can sneak in, maybe you let him walk. I don't know. I'm not torn either way. Like if you want to give him one more year, what I wouldn't do is I'm not in a position, I don't think, to commit long-term, like a long-term second contract, like the Saquon deal or the Josh Jacobs deal or the, oh my God, what is his name? Indianapolis Colts running back. Jonathan, not Allen, not Jonathan Allen.
Taylor. There's the word.
Jonathan Taylor deal. I'm not ready to commit kind of longer term money to the position yet. So if you want to let him walk, as long as they had something in place. I don't know if in place is what we have right now in the two kids behind him, but we'll see. We'll see. Everything Breece Hall to me right now is secondary. We got to see what Josh Fields is. We got to see what Fields is.
Zachary says, Dom season A's fan.
I am not an A's fan. I am a Mets fan. I coach my boys in their baseball league, and one of them's the A's, so I get a hat.
Evan says, I don't want the Geico caveman Warren after we passed on Brock last year. I'd be irate. Do you like the whole Brock Bowers, Olu, and Membu Warren talk? Like, what is your thoughts on that sort of discussion?
It's apples and oranges, man. Draft classes are different, right? I don't think you can not take a position because you passed on it last year, and vice versa. So I just think that if Warren's the guy you target, and Warren's the guy that they like at that number 7 pick, and he's the guy you go with because they feel one of the top 7 guys in the class, then go get him, regardless of what happened last year.
Yeah, and you know what? It's a different regime, different needs, different kind of team. So, hey, look, if you have the benefit of hindsight,
different positional value, right?
Absolutely.
Would Joe Douglas or Robert Saleh ever spend $7.5 million upwards to $11 million on a safety? Hell no. We signed Chuck Clark for $2 million, and Ashton Davis for $1.75.
Totally different mindsets.
Correct.
Bearded comes in, says, I would only trade Breece at the deadline if we are out of the playoffs. Off season, if he is disappointing this year. I think if he's disappointing this year, you're probably just letting him walk and you're not even going to franchise tag him. Or maybe you give him some type of transition tag, which doesn't really ever get used. But if someone's not going to give him a fat contract, then, hey, go out and see what you can get. We'll match that offer. I think I'd be all right with that, especially if you're not breaking the bank to keep him. As far as like trading him at the deadline, you'd kind of have to wow me, I think, because I do fall in the camp of wanting to retain Breece, and I'd rather roll the dice and maybe get a comp pick than like take, a 5th round pick at the deadline or something like that. And I don't think we're getting wowed right now. Brian says, running backs get hurt all the time. You need 2 or 3 for a season. Yes, it's a good reason why the Jets took some running backs last year. And who knows? I mean, if they wanted to add a mid-round running back at some point, I think we've done it 1 or 2 times in this mock draft series, but like that would probably tip their hand a little bit, I think, if they were to do that, and maybe what direction they're maybe leaning with Breece. It's the one position we don't even need to think about in the draft. Go after holes and don't create a new one. Yeah, if there's one position group across this entire team that I feel comfortable with, it's hands down running back. Like, I don't know if there's another position group that I value as strongly as that.
Yeah. I don't know, Duncan. I'll say this. It might be one of those positions where you always just take a shot. Maybe not on day 1 or day 2. But it's always one of those positions that you want to have something. You want to have a bullet in the chamber, right? Because I think running backs per se, their careers are shorter than most other positions in the NFL, right? And obviously the physicality of the game, you get, they get hurt a bunch. So that's a place that I want to stockpile some depth. Even if it's a late round guy, you throw him on the practice squad, make him active, blah, 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 blah. I don't know. I hear what you're saying, but I don't know if I necessarily agree wholeheartedly.
Zachary says Golden equals 𝐒𝐿, Garrett Wilson equals St. Brown. Do you think that's what they're trying to duplicate on this offense, or do you think Justin Fields is not Jared Goff, so we're going to be trying something a little different?
Yeah, and that's one of the things I want to talk to Will about. In terms of, I just don't know how valuable or how much they're going to value a second receiver in this in this system with Justin Fields. Like, especially if they address tight end early, you're going to have Garrett and Breece and said tight end kind of probably being your focal point on a team that you don't expect to be throwing the ball, 2/3 of the time like they were last year. So that to me seems like, though I know everyone wants to fill the wide receiver room because it's so barren, but it might be one of those positions that just might be an afterthought right now. They'll be like, hey, let's just wait. Let's see if it works out. We can always fill it, next year or something like that.
Yeah, and you also don't have to necessarily spend a top end first round draft pick on wide receiver. Like, this is a pretty deep wide receiver class from like not a top endness of it, but like from middle of the first through the end of the third, there's a lot of decent guys that could fill the Jets' needs, and especially the top of the second round is kind of where I would feel comfortable doing that, because then you can get Warren at tight end or Membu at right tackle and have the support for Justin Fields. He uses his tight ends all the time. That second look that you get at the wide receiver position doesn't really happen a whole lot. So you're almost wasting a year of a contract by doing it that way. So yeah, that's sort of why McMillan has kind of trailed off a little bit for me. I was real gung-ho about him early on, and then when we did commit to Fields, I was like, all right, maybe that's not the route you want to go, and Warren becomes a little bit more attractive and whatnot. All right. We've got our buddy coming.
Hey, here he is.
Pull him up.
How we doing?
I got you.
What's up, Will?
Boom.
You guys hear me, right?
Got you loud and clear, Will. Loud and clear, Will. Thanks so much for hopping on.
Awesome. Yeah, no problem. Sorry, I'm on I don't know what was happening with my Zoom. It kept saying I didn't have internet, but like I have internet, so I was confused.
It's all good.
Thanks for coming on, bud. Long time.
Yeah, appreciate it. Man. Appreciate you guys having me.
Hell yeah.
Dude, we're chopping it up here, talking with the chat a little bit, saying like we're gonna get, I guess, a first rounder this year, next year, and Kyle Pitts for this Atlanta deal. I mean, people.
Oh yeah, we're definitely reputable.
Maybe Bijan too. Fuck it. Who knows? Right?
Reputable sources. Reputable sources.
Mm-hmm.
So listen, we were just like I said, we're waiting for you, Will. We're talking about some, it's scenarios, just playing it through. Like,
yeah.
How would you feel about do you think that the drop off from 7 to 15 is the biggest deal in the world? Because personally, I don't. I don't think. I think the real meat and potatoes of this draft really happens rounds, from mid round 1 probably to the end of round 3. I think that's where the best value is. It's not the most top heavy class. So, entertain us a little bit. Like, let's not talk about Membu. Let's not talk about Tyler Warren. We've beaten those two, to a pulp. Hypothetical make believe scenario. We dropped to 15. Like, who are the guys that Will Parkinson circling as targets?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with you. Generally speaking, I think there's a clear there's a clear 3 or 4 blue chip guys, depending upon, everyone's got a different version of blue chip and generational and all the stupid fucking terms we say we're never going to use again, and then we use them anyways. But yeah, I would say, especially positions like running back, tight end, to an extent edge, interior offensive line, like it's a very deep class. So depending on your value and depending on what you see, some people might have Warren significantly as tight end 1. Other people might say, hey, he's in a group that he's the lead dog, but I love Colston Loveland and I like Elijah Arroyo and Terrence Ferguson and Mason Taylor. And like those guys are 90% of the same player, and we think we can get them. So I agree with you. There's good value. I think 15 through like 70, like everyone's going to view it a little differently. And it's always like that, obviously, with the draft. But I think this draft in particular, obviously things have changed with NIL and guys staying in school longer. Some guys come out more. There's different, guys transfer all the time. There's just so much of a different landscape where, I don't know, it's a totally random example, but like Isaiah Bond, maybe, a year ago was a guy that was going to be a first round guy and transfers and has a bad year. And then on top of it has had a pretty decently bad process. So he's maybe not viewed the same way. My point being that, I would say there's good value. Like if the Jets were to trade back into the teens, I still think you could look tight end. I still think you can maybe receiver. In my opinion, I don't think receiver at 7 in this class is a good value, but maybe it's a better value at 15. Maybe you feel a little bit better about it.
Yeah.
Those are just certain positions. I think people may be more palatable if you got a bunch of picks. Would people be more open to an edge rusher? Like, those are the things I think about too. We just talked so much offense that I just don't know that it's a lock that they're going to draft offense at 7. Like I think everyone's assuming it, but I don't know if that's a fair assumption. It's the Jets. We have no idea. You never know.
Outside of corner, which I would be completely shocked if they took at 7 now that they're paying Stevens, right?
Mm-hmm.
Outside of corner, you can argue any other position.
Yeah,
you can argue any other position would make sense. I
would yell if they drafted a guard at 6 or 7. I'd start yelling. But again, like they'd be drafting offensive line, and hey, maybe they would view like this. Here's my thing. I don't buy for a second that AVT is no matter what a guard in 2025. I think that they'd liked him to be a guard. I think the Jets would have liked AVT to be a guard the entire time he's been here. But and he also, if you listen, Darren Muji also was like, he's super flexible and we can play him anywhere, and that's a great thing to have. I think in a perfect world, they can draft a right tackle either at 7 or in round 2 or 3, and that guy competes with 𝐒𝐿 𝐂 and some of the guys in house, and someone has a really nice really nice camp and they can figure it out. But what if, I don't know, they draft Ozzie Trapello in the 3rd round and 𝐒𝐿 𝐂 is a starter, and it's like, dude, he looks terrible in camp. And, Josh Myers is having an amazing camp, and they're like, you know what, we're going to start Josh Myers at guard and AVT tackle. Like, those are the things I would say. And so I don't know. Yeah, like I said, it's hard to take too much from a previous regime. We don't know what Glenn and Muji are going to do because, again, they were in the passenger seat at best in the last, roles in terms of the draft room and things like that. Glenn obviously talked about, hey, I had to say in a lot of different things, and obviously Muji had to stay in the draft, but he wasn't, pulling the trigger, and especially with the Sean Payton regime. So, but to be fair, the Lions in a draft, everyone, they took a receiver coming off a torn ACL that wasn't going to play until week 8. And then, gets the gun charge and the betting and all that stuff. But before that, was a guy that they took a risk, right? Jameson Williams, another guy who's a transfer guy that broke out and then tears the ACL, and they still took him. They took a running back that wasn't even talked about as a running back 1 in the class in the top 12, who's been amazing, and he's arguably been better than the guy that went ahead of him. And they took Jack Campbell at 18, which I think, to me, was the most surprising, just in the aspect of, they end up getting Brian Branch later and stuff like that. But, hey, man, like, I don't know. My point being, do we really know that they're going to draft? Oh, they have to go premium position. Like, do we know that, or are we just assuming that's what they're going to do? You know what I mean?
Well, I think we're kind of I think that's our assumption because that's what we're trained to do during the Joe Douglas regime, right? Mm-hmm. You knew what he was going to do with his first round pick for sure. It was going to be of a premium position, so on and so forth. But you did talk about one thing I want to touch on because me and Ryan were talking about it a little bit. Ryan is Ryan loves Ted McMillan, and as he should, he's a great player. But we were just saying, like, he's kind of cooled down on the idea of Ted at 7 because who knows who knows what this regime really thinks in regards to target share for wide receiver 2, right? Especially if you go tight end early, and early being rounds 1, 2, or 3. Yeah. Garrett's going to get his. You figure Breece and the other, backfield mates are going to get their share. The tight end's going to get some. How much do they really value that premium pick at a position that's not going to get any targets? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think an interesting thing too with Ted and even to a lesser extent Jaden Higgins, someone like that. If you look at just the current landscape of what the Jets have at receiver, again, I surely we all hope this is not what the the receiver room looks like in week one. But let's just play the game of this is what it is at the moment. They have four outside receivers and one. Well, if you count Xavier Gibson as a receiver, they have two guys that are primary slot guys, right? Obviously, him and Corley. Two of those guys, those two guys that I just think should count on zero from this year. And then if you get anything, that's great.
Yeah.
But if you look at the guys they brought in, they still have Alan Lazard there. I think they truly would like to have Alan Lazard back, but like at very minimal money. And again, is Lazard going to take that? Does he really have a choice? I still think it comes down to he's either a Jet or a Steeler this year. And obviously, if Rodgers goes to place in Pittsburgh, I would hope the Jets say, hey, like, you can have him, but we're going to flip up into the fifth round, extra fifth round pick, and we'll give you a sixth, whatever it is. Tyler Johnson, bigger receiver. Josh Reynolds, obviously, kind of very similar to Alan Lazard, bigger receiver. And obviously, Garrett, you'd like to be a chess piece you can move around. My point being, are they going to be more interested in maybe those day two guys like a Jalen Noel? Is that maybe a guy they're more interested in that he can play outside? He's not as big as Jaden Higgins is, and he's an explosive athlete. He has some flexibility enough to do it, and maybe not on a full-time basis. But their receiver room's a little weird because everyone pretty much is either a primary slot guy or like a much bigger body receiver, and then there's just Garrett who you want to be able to free up. So, I wonder if they opt more of the Jack Besh, even as a bigger guy that can play inside and outside. I just feel like they need to get a guy who can play inside and outside, and not that Ted can't. My only issue with
Ted might have to. He might be.
He might have to.
He might be a bigger.
My
slot.
one issue with Ted, and I think this isn't because of the one video that came out. This stuff has been floated around for months, but I just worry a little bit. Like, it's a little like laissez-faire attitude a little bit at times, and it's not even. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. Guys can be super successful in the NFL, and they don't have to like be as obsessed with. They don't have to be doing streams at 8:30 at night on a Monday talking about the draft the way we are, right? Like that's not every time, but I do think a little bit Aaron Glenn feels like it's a culture of like where you need to care as much as everybody else cares. And I just get a little worried sometimes when you're already hearing like doesn't love football, like
doesn't watch football,
doesn't watch football. And again, it's not you don't have to be like this doesn't have to be the draft day thing where like, you're obsessed with the game so much, but I do also think it's hard if you like interviewed, and I know we joked about, but like if you're in an NFL combine, you get the 15-minute speed dating interviews that they get to do and the Senior Bowl and stuff like that. But you come out of an interview with Jalen Walker, who's like an alpha male that like would like die on the field for Georgia football, and then it's like that's like, yeah, man, like I do backflips. And you're like, what the hell just happened? And again, it's not actually like bashing the player. My point being, it just I don't know. That's what happens. It's not just about what's on the field. Again, I like Ted. I think he's probably better suited in the teens. I will tell you, if they draft Matthew Golden, I'll be extremely frustrated. At 7, like the guy, again, if you moved back, sure, I'd be open to it. But I don't know. Dom, you tell me his tape says 4.2. He's a 4.4 guy. Again,
I fought with everyone. I fought with everyone all. Since that all up and down Twitter, like, I know what the clock said that he ran, but his tape does not.
Even like, let's be honest here. Like, is Garrett really a 4.3 guy? No, I think Garrett's a 4.4 guy, and that's fine. That was the juiced year when they put it on prime time. Nothing against Garrett. Like, Garrett's a really good player. That's awesome. There's nothing to do with that. It's just, sometimes like Shamar Stewart's faster than he is a 4.59. Like, I can tell you confidently, like, he was running in the 4.4s in workouts. Like, and you see it on tape. Sometimes it worries me. I don't know if you guys feel this way. I'd much rather somebody that runs 4.55 that plays 4.4 than the opposite. Like, it's so frustrating. Like, I don't know. Elijah Moore tested out of fourth stuff, like low 4.3s. Did I ever see Elijah Moore run away other than the one Dolphins touchdown from anybody ever?
Nope.
You know what I mean? Like, that's so much more frustrating than the opposite of like, hey, this guy's not, a burner, and then all of a sudden he's always figuring it out. Like Larry Fitz and Jerry Rice and all those guys. And again, we're talking about the greatest of all time, but those guys were not actually fast. They were game fast though, and they played fast. So I just thought Golden's good. Just, I don't know if I'd take that guy at 7.
Yeah, and even like Tet too. Like I feel like for me, the 7 pick, the same way I felt about Sauce was like, all right, number 4 is a statement pick. You're coming in here with a new regime with Glenn and with Muji. Like, what says statement pick? What defines an Aaron Glenn, Darren Muji player? And I feel like Tyler Warren and Membu are kind of the 2 guys that sort of embody that from, a physicality standpoint, just a grittiness to their game. I think when to Dom's point, mentioning the receiver, we're not going to see a ton of reps out of this, or not a ton of reps, but a ton of targets for the wide receiver 2 anyway. So targeting a wide receiver in the 2nd or 3rd round is probably value-wise the way you'd want to go.
Yeah.
I do like.
And they brought in Kyle Williams today for a 30 visit. That's
you want to
nice.
talk about burners? That's
one.
That's
right.
That dude is extremely fast.
Yeah.
I would say it's so cheesy, but I think this is a big statement draft too. It's the first draft of regime, right? Usually, Joe Douglas obviously took a huge home run swing with Mekhi Becton. A lot of times in their first, people either go really conservative and try to build culture guys, or they go with these big swings. To me, I'm kind of the mindset, and I know people are have moved off Warren, and everyone's kind of out on it for some reason. Everyone's moved on to tackle no matter what. I don't know. My gut tells me I still think it's Warren in round 1. I don't know. It just feels like culture fit, position of need, mentality, and style of football they want to play. It offers a gadget to do a million different things. I know I've said it for a million years. If I could have bet the underdog, if Warren would have ran a 40, I would have bet the over on whatever the time was. And again, but he's a guy that I don't know, man, he makes plays and scores touchdowns. Again, it's 7, maybe 5 or 6 spots higher than I'd love to take him. Sure, but most of these guys are 5 or 6 spots higher than I'd like to take them. Right? I don't know. Is Armand Membu in a different year, the 12th or 13th pick? Maybe he is. And again, but you can't compare it. I don't know. I get frustrated with that kind of concept of, if the Jets love Tyler Warren, then take him. There's people a couple of things people don't talk about enough. The roommates with Olu Fashanu at Penn State. They're really close friends. They're roommates in college. So you don't think Olu's standing on the table for him?
Not to mention, you brought it up. You brought it up before too, and I thought Dom was going to go there with it. Last week we were talking about how Josh Myers signs a Pro Bowl incentive contract. Justin Fields, former center, and then we hear Muji say, "Oh, Myers is going to try and push Tittman." Well, where's Tittman going to play if Myers is starting at center? Clearly, AVT, while they're saying they're keeping him at guard, very much in play at right tackle, especially for the money he's going to be getting. So if you make that shift, Tyler Warren at 7 just makes all the sense in the world.
Yeah, I think if I was ranking it as of it stands today, I like Mason Graham. I don't love Mason Graham, but at the same time, if you told me the Jets were hey man, we want to get the best out of Quinnen for the next 3 to 4 years. This is going to open up Jermaine Johnson. It's going to open up Will McDonald. Mason Graham's, going to be an amazing player in the league. And even if he's really Leonard Williams, but can Quinnen Williams be, all pro Quinnen Williams, and our defense is going to be transformed, and we're going to stop the run for once, and we're going to do all these different things. Sure. I'm open to that idea too. If you have a plan outside of round 1. The one thing I think I've talked about it a lot this week, last 10 days ish. I wonder if the Jets go Warren or anybody outside of tackle. Let's play the hypothetical game, and they view one of those guys back end of round 1, specifically starting with Minnesota, and then a couple teams. Minnesota has 4 picks in this draft and no cap space, so they're going to eventually want to
they're
either
going to
compile picks, or because I can point to some needs for Minnesota, but I don't know if there's one specific need at 24 they're going to be able to fill. If you're the Jets, you're sitting there, and first of all, they've made multiple trades over the last 4 or 5 years, but I don't know, Josh Connerly's sitting there at 24, and you've already taken Tyler Warren. How are you? If you walk out of round 1 with Tyler Warren and Josh Connerly, I don't really give a shit what you do with the rest of the draft, because you filled your 2 biggest offensive needs outside of wide receiver 2. I'm just using him as an example. It could be a Gray Zabel, and you say, hey, listen, I'm going to put AVT at tackle, and I'm going to play Gray Zabel at guard, or Tittman at guard, and Gray Zabel at center, whatever. You start doing the logistics. I don't know. I love Josh Simmons. It'd be risky just with the knee. I don't know exactly what the knee looks like now. I mean, Dom, you could attest this. He probably would have been he might have been the best tackle.
Yeah. He would have been. I mean, you're speaking my language. Josh Connolly's OT1 for me. I love Josh. I think his game is so good in the sense, especially if you're going to run wide zone. Like, I think he is a perfect fit, and I'm assuming that's what Engstrand's running. I still don't, he hasn't really, they really haven't talked scheme, or he hasn't really talked at all, or AG hasn't really talked too much about his scheme. But I think we all assume that bits and pieces are going to be taken from Ben Johnson, and then more of his West Coast principles are going to be put in. So I'm assuming it's going to be some sort of outside zone blocking scheme. Connolly's a great fit. Ursery's a great fit. He's got his he's got his bugaboos in my eyes anyway. But yeah, like you said, if you came out of this, if you rolled the dice and you said Josh Simmons, we're gonna pop into the end of the first round. We're gonna let you take your time, because we're gonna let Chooks and Max Mitchell battle out to open up camp and open up the season. Hopefully, we get you back by week 3 or something like that. Because to me, I don't know. Like, I know they say they want to win, and goddamn, I hope they do. But to me, there's no way you can fill all the holes on the roster in one draft and one off season. So it's a 2-year plan anyway. So
yeah, it's a 2-year plan, but I think I keep going back to this. And I don't know how you guys feel about this, but everyone kind of sucked last year. Like, I don't think a single person was satisfied with the way they played. Maybe Jamie and Sherwood, maybe, maybe Will McDonald to an extent. Outside of that, to a man, if you ask any of these dudes, like, nobody felt like they had a good year last year.
Yeah.
If you guys are playing in the back of their baseball, I would say that the goal for the Jets is somewhere of, can you find a way to have 2006 and 2022 kind of mixed, where like the coaching in 2022 and the quarterback play was obviously horrendous, but 2006 was like a lot of young guys, but there's mixed with some of these 1-year upside flyer guys. The defense, most of these guys are still on this defense that were really good. Quincy Williams was not as good as he was the year before. I think he had the back stuff and whatever. Ken Sherwood in a full year starting, full off season, new scheme. I mean, I'd like to see him maybe put on 10 pounds and like just play a little heavier just against the run.
Yeah.
Michael Carter was basically not out all year. Sauce didn't have a great year. Quinnen didn't have his best year. Jermaine was out I'm not saying that they're this great roster, but I also feel like even Garrett, Breece, John Simpson had a good year last year. Olu only played like really 4 games, and he looked great, and it was awesome. But you only got really 4 true starts out of him. Tippmann had a good year. I don't know. I keep AVT this is the first time AVT's had an offseason since he was a rookie where he's not recovering from a surgery. That stuff, if those guys play well, you're just in a much different ballpark than you were, 3-4 weeks ago, where everyone looked like shit. And it's a product of the environment they were in. I get it, but you would hope that good coaching mixed with guys just playing the way they're. I see someone's comment about Jeremy Rucker. Again, I'm not sitting here telling you Jeremy Rucker is going to all of a sudden turn into the player that I thought he was going to be when I was down in Mobile 4 years ago, where I was like, dude, he looks every bit of an NFL tight end. But can he be 80% of what he was supposed to be? Where hey, playing with some confidence, guy that can be a tight end too, where if you feel like, hey, we actually have a nice little core here, and I don't know, that's the type of guy. Can Tony Adams look more like the player he was 2 years ago than last year, where it's hey, he's at least playable, at least we're not getting screwed because he's on the field. Those are the things that they actually need more than anything, is the guys that are here to not can Andre Cisco play like the player he was 12 months ago? Because if he can, he's a lot better than Chuck Clark, I'll tell you that much. You know what I mean? That's the little things they need a lot.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point too. Is that you didn't expect everyone to have a down year, and basically,
you didn't expect worst case scenario for every single position.
They threw it in as soon as Salah was out. They're like, "Yeah, the season's over.
Yeah, we're good.
It is what it is."
I mean,
get to next year.
The injuries definitely played, and I think I think we don't talk about enough or don't acknowledge enough how much Michael Carter fits the run and helps on the perimeter in the run game. He's not only a very good, slot cover corner, but he fits the run so well. And not having him at, I mean, he was a shell of himself, whatever the injury was. The back.
Yeah, I would say this too. Think about it. If you think about it this way, from like all three levels, they lost their like communicator at all three levels. CJ Mosley not playing last year, like I don't think people realized how devastating that was. And then on top of that, Michael Carter communicated for the whole back end. So you have your two smartest players on defense that played a combined like 4 games of like real football.
Yeah.
That means there was a lot of coverage bust. There's a lot of run fit bust. There's a lot of different things that were going on. And then on offense, it's like you had a quarterback that was basically just changing the play all the time. It's like, oh, why aren't the Jets running? Well, the quarterback continues to change the play, add stats. And again, I love Rodgers. Like, he's my favorite quarterback I've ever watched. And it's no shade towards him. It's just the reality. Like, he was checking out of runs nonstop. And it's like they were doing all these things that were just so mind-blowing to watch like unfold. Joe Caporoso uses this term all the time, and I'm going to steal it for this. Like, it was very AAU, like, we're all trying to eat here, and nobody's actually caring about, like, the result of – not that nobody cared if they won or lost, but I think it got to the point where, all right, well, everyone's getting fired. I need an extension or I'm going to get cut. Like, let me start to try to – I don't know. That's what happens, man. It was a shame. I hope this year the communication, especially on defense, is at a level where you feel really good and confident when they're on the field, where they're going to give up points. Everyone gives up points in the NFL, but can they be a tough out every week? Can they like be a team that you're like, damn, dude, like every time, the record of after playing the Jets, the teams get like for a long time, the Lions and the Niners the last 4 or 5 years, where it's like you play them the next week, you're losing no matter what because you're so beat up from playing them. Like, I'd love to get to that mentality where it's like, dude, the late 90s, early 2000s football is coming back to an extent, which is so weird because the rules get softer and softer, but you gotta be able to run the football. Like the nose tackle's coming back, fullbacks are back. It's kind of crazy to watch unfold.
It's like it's ebbs and flows, right? You see the revolution of more cover 4 and 2 deep safeties. How do you counter it? Run it right down the throat.
Run the football.
Right? Run the football, make them bring somebody up, and then beat them on the outside. But you talked about Andre Cisco. Talk to me about the other side of the safety. They haven't really addressed it. Tony Adams got his tender. That necessarily doesn't, equate to starter money. He's going to be more of a role guy. I know they brought Isaiah Oliver, who can flip back between the nickel and the safety spot. That versatility is nice. But to me, I've heard rumblings that they think Andre Cisco is going to play more up in the box. I don't see that. I think he's probably better fit to play center field or whatnot. Who's the guy in this class that you target or you like to play to complement Cisco on the back end?
Interesting. So I generally agree with you. I think Cisco could play either.
Yeah.
I've had some people tell me they think it's better if he plays closer to the line of scrimmage, eliminates like a couple. He takes risks. But honestly, the Jags defense last year was just such a disaster. Everyone,
it was so bad.
You talk about bad communication. Woof. That was tough. In terms of this class, look, I love Billy Bowman. Like, he's one of my favorite players in this class. I just think you want to talk about culture, guys. 47 starts in college. Like, he's a first-team All-American. If he came out 12 months ago, he's probably going in the top 50, top 40. He was that good. I mean, he's a little undersized, but
yeah, I was just gonna ask you, does the size scare you? I mean, he's
you know why it doesn't scare me? Because he's a willing tackler, but he's not like a Jordan Whitehead. Like, I'm gonna try to run you over every time. He's a little bit. Yeah, you get a little worried. Like, hey, he's gonna hold up for 8 years. I don't know, but I don't know who made this point. John Lynch made this point at the combine. Sometimes it's okay to just draft a guy for one contract and be okay with it and be like, hey, this guy's a 4th-round pick. We hope he's a contributor for the next 4 to 5 years, and we'll evaluate it when we get to it. The one thing I like about Bowman is if Bowman and Cisco are your safeties, you're going to create turnovers. You're going to get beat once in a while. Those guys both take a lot of risks. But the Jets are going to the Jets can start intercepting the football and forcing fumbles and doing things that normal NFL franchises do. It'd be a lot more fun to watch on Sundays as opposed to hey, we gave up 13 points, but we have created 4 turnovers in 16 games. That's not ideal either.
I got a few chats I want to hammer through before we hit that 9 o'clock hour. Bearded comes in and says, how big do you think the drop off from Warren to Mason Taylor and Taylor to Helm are the gritty guys I like in this draft for tight end? Will.
I
Mason
think
Taylor's his guy, so
Mason
get
Taylor's
ready.
my guy. I would say Mason Taylor's. I would take Mason Taylor in the top 50. I would not take Gunnar Helm in the top 100. There's my issue. Gunnar Helm, I know is the ankle, and I still think he could be a productive player in the NFL. I don't. Is he like gonna be that guy after the catch in the NFL? Is he gonna like? What is he gonna do for you? That's a different skill set. I think Mason Taylor's got a little bit of everything, and I just trust like the background. I trust, I don't know, program, bloodline, the whole like. There's just a lot there to like. Character. I like Gunnar Helm again. I don't know. I'm not sure. It depends where you take him. But I think Warren's the most complete, I think, of the tight ends. I think Loveland offers you more upside. Just he's a different type of players. He's more Bowers than Warren is. Warren's more like your traditional, can do a little bit of everything, can play some slot, can run the Wildcat, the Jets, can do a tush push and the whole thing now and like with that. But yeah, again, like if you're gonna go like the gritty guys on later on day 3, it's to me it's more of, I mean, no, Terrence Ferguson's not really gritty, actually. He's just a sick athlete. But, like, is it, Ferguson in the 4th round? Like, I love Jackson Hall is another one of my guys. Like, but he's like a fifth, 6th round pick. Dom got to speak to him at the Senior Bowl. But it's just, that's a mentality pick of, like, hey, man, we're going to punch you in the mouth. And, like, that's a dude who loves contact.
Acknowledges that's going to be my role. I'm going to, and I think that's exactly what he said. He's like, my job is to put my face mask right through that guy's chest. Like, that's my role.
It was an awesome quote. Honestly, got me fired up. It was the most football quote I've ever heard.
Absolutely.
Swamp Ranger says, Helm or Ferguson in the 4th feels like better value than Warren at 7. I'd rather draft 2 tight ends in the 4th and later. Will, what do you think of that?
I mean, I don't disagree with the idea of like, hey, can we double up at tight end and maybe we like the value later in the draft? I don't disagree. I think if you're expecting Helm or Ferguson to be Tyler Warren, especially early on, I think that's a big ask. I think they both have skill sets, and Ferguson's really good athlete, like tested awesome and natural hands and all these different things, but it's not perfect. And it's a tight end's a trend. Like I've referenced Rucker twice, but Rucker was a really good player at Ohio State. Was a really good player coming out of high school, really good player coming out of college, a top 100 pick. Like, it checked all the boxes, and it takes a long time for a lot of these guys to kind of for the light to turn on at tight end. So I just worry a little bit if your tight end room next year is like Helm, Ferguson, and Jeremy Ruckert, you're kind of honestly asking. You're asking and Stone Smart, like you're asking these guys to just, I don't know. I worry a little bit, but at the same time, I guess if you feel like, hey, we love Armand Membu. In round 2, we love Tyleik Williams, and like we're just gonna like go trenches, and that's what we're gonna do. Yeah, sure. I think this is a class where you could get good value, at tight end in rounds 3 through 6. I would say.
The bigger question, Will, before Ryan gets into this super chat, is if they do pass on Tyler Warren in round 1, how much of a contract is it going to get for you to put the pads back on and line up there as our wide?
I think I would pay. To get on the field. I'll invincible this thing. I'll just run down on kickoffs, get some concussions, let it happen.
Green Bean says, Will, what's your take on the Falcons trade rumor? Do you think a 1st-round trade back is something Muji pulls off in his first draft as GM?
Yeah, so I don't think they're opposed to that. I worry a little bit from an aspect of if you trade back now, what I like the idea of getting another 1st-round pick, right? Like that to me makes sense, especially if you think you're going to go try to get a quarterback next year and trade up. You always like to have that extra asset, obviously, just in case. It's weird to me how much they've pointed to, we want to win now. We're going to win this year. Like, this is our thing. I don't know if that signals to me that, again, I'm not saying it's the wrong move. It's a weird signal to like go around all offseason being like, hey, we're even going to push the Rodgers money, out over multiple years because we want to have flexibility this year. Like, I just felt like that was it'd be a weird concept to then move back, 8, 9 picks. But like I said, again, the Kyle Pitts part of that proposed deal is so irrelevant to me. The Falcons have been shopping that dude for the last 8 weeks, and nobody wants him.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I'm good. Like again, it's fine if they take a risk on it and he's part of the deal, but like that's not what's relevant to me. I'd honestly like I'd be like, hey, can we take your second rounder this year and a second rounder next year instead, so you can add another like 2 top 50. I don't know. I almost would rather more picks. It's
Yeah.
crazy that might sound.
And the Falcons are in a similar situation to Minnesota because they got a first, a second, a fourth, and then 2 sevenths. They don't have a lot of capital
Yeah,
either.
'cause they
So
traded a 3rd-round pick from Matt Judon, who literally quit mid camp. Good job. That was a smart move in his mid 30s.
Taps Any Button comes in, says, in that case, we have Jeremy Ruckert, and that's Justin Fields' old college tight end. I think we should take Tet or Graham, if not those, take offensive line. So he's saying not one.
Interesting. I mean, again, I don't know. I feel like the closer we get to the draft, and maybe this is what we always do, is there's like the chalk picks, right? That we kind of all assume right now it's Mambu, Warren, maybe Graham, and Tet probably to a lesser extent. I don't know about how you guys feel, but like if the Jets took an edge rusher at 7, people will go crazy. I know. I know that's what's going to happen. But would it be the most surprising thing ever if they took an edge rusher or running back?
Not at all, because you hope that Jermaine Johnson is going to be back to the player he was. I mean, he's got the mindset, but he blew his Achilles out, right? He blew his Achilles out. You don't know what he's going to be back. It could sap some, explosiveness from him, at least early on. And then, is Will McDonald, where do they see Will McDonald? Is he just a DPR? Do they think that he can, that he can play 3 downs? And Michael Clemens now getting $3.6 million. You got to assume he's not even a lock for the roster, right? That's
no, definitely should not be. That should
$3.6 million. That's free money with $100,000 in dead cap. He's no lock. Now you have some of the younger kids. I think you saw some plays at least from the kid from UConn. McGregor didn't see a lot of reps, and maybe they think they can get some more from them, but it's a weaker position than we want to talk about, or that people talk about, because they're so tunnel visioned on we gotta go offense.
If they had addressed, you felt better about right tackle, and they brought back Conklin, or they went out and they signed, I don't know, just name your John Johnson or whatever it is. I feel like we'd pretty much consistently be being like, hey, defensive line is very much on the table. We'd be like, I'm pretty adamant that there's a good shot it's edge rusher, even a defensive tackle. I think it's because what they did in free agency, unfortunately, or lack of what they did in free agency, makes it feel like offense is much more of a priority. I'll tell you, like, straight up, if they draft Jalen Walker at 7, I don't think he'll get to 7. But if they drafted him at 7, I might be the only person that does any coverage of the Jets that won't be upset about it. But
you and Buffalo Jet fan.
Yeah, me and him and Shamar Stewart are the guys that, like, unfortunately I've had to plant my flag in. So there's no going back now. But my point being is just, like we talked about before, I don't know, if they randomly took 𝐃𝐨𝐦 𝐂 at 7, would I do it? No. But would I have to sit there and say, I don't know, man, they just Kirby Joseph and Brian Branch were, or been all pros the last couple of years. Maybe he thinks he's a safety, and they're going to just be like, hey, we're going to dominate teams on the back end. Like, I don't know. I'm not saying they should do this. Mike Green, too. I don't know if I would take Mike Green at 7, but maybe the Jets are like, hey, Jermaine, Mike Green, and it just feels like a weird mix with Mike Green, only because I don't know if it kind of feels redundant to what they have. Point being, gun to my head now, I think they take Warren still. But I think there's like 7 or 8 players that wouldn't surprise me, and we're not going to have time for this, but I don't think they're going to take Genty. But if you told me they did, I'd be like, okay, I'm going to trust it, because they just came from a regime that took Jahmyr Gibbs at 12, and they honestly ended up being an extremely explosive offense. Like, you'd hope they'd have a plan, if that was the case.
Dom had to leave us here. He had a hard cutoff. I got one more super chat here. King Blaze says, enjoy watching your show. Go Yankees, Jets, Knicks, Rangers. Feel sorry for Mets fans who are Jets fans. I think the Jets will be above 500. We still have good players. Coaching counts. Will, if you had to say at the end of the day where the Jets ultimately finish up record-wise, what's your prediction? I think 5.5 is the Vegas line.
I'm gonna stick with what I've been saying for a couple months now. I think they go 9-8. They break the streak. They trade up for a quarterback next year, and we are having some serious conversations of can they compete with Buffalo in the division?
I love that.
Very optimistic, I know.
No, I love that. I'm a big fan. Obviously I'm hoping Justin Fields balls out and we, maybe he takes the quarterback conversation away from us, but more than likely I think 2026 is going to be the class for the Jets, which is probably why the trade down does feel appealing because you get the extra assets. But
because you get the extra first rounder, you feel good about, hey, we got a lot of capital coming up in the future.
Mm-hmm. And I have no problem giving up additional capital to go up and get our guy, just like the Chiefs did with Mahomes, the Texans did with Watson. Like it happens across the board.
Bills did with Josh Allen. I'm telling you, it's like you really look around the league. It's usually not always the trade up to 1. It's like the trade up from 18 to 12, or I don't know, whatever. Make up you've already established yourself as a good roster. Then the quarterback's the missing piece. The dream scenario for me this year is like Glenn, you establish is your guy. Like not just like we want him to be a guy, but like, hey, he's like a legit awesome coach. You lock up Garrett and Sauce this summer. You feel really good about, hey, this is going to be our core 8 guys that we're going to roll with, and everything else around it's going to be kind of interchangeable and whatever it may be. We feel like the culture is fixed. All these different things. If you can break the streak, that'd be fantastic. But put yourself in a position to be a destination that's not like, it's not like, oh man, we're going to build off the 7 wins. Like, can you build off 9 wins and go, okay, cool. And now we're going into a year where we have depth, we have young players, we have good veterans, we have buy-in, we have a good culture, we're fixed. That's kind of the dream for me. We're not in the Super Bowl window, unfortunately, but I think being in a window where you can play competitive football would be a nice, refreshing thing.
Oh yeah, I say it's more about the eye test for me than I think the win total necessarily. Like if I feel like, okay, this team feels like they're gelling together, there's camaraderie, I can see where it's building from. I think that's a successful season. Well, I don't want to take up any more of your time. I got to jump over to another show. I want to thank you for coming on. Let the guys know where they can get you, where they can find you.
Yeah.
And you got anything going on that we should know about?
Turn on the Jets, Badlands, and all 32 on CLNS Media. All 32 is obviously the full league. And then Badlands and Turn the Jets. Obviously very Jet centric. Appreciate you having me, and we'll do this again soon.
I love it. Will, thank you so much for coming on. Boys and girls, we'll be over on Talkin Jets Talk with myself and Tiggo doing a little 9 o'clock actually, mock. And then Green Bean and Dom are going to be doing the 10 o'clock mock over on Green Bean Jets Fan. This is Jets Talk signing off. Jets! Jets!